Hey, this is William Morris, and you're watching the Brotherhood of Gaming. Grand Theft Auto 5! Grand Theft Auto 5! Grand Theft Auto 5! Grand Theft Auto 5! Grand Theft Auto 5? Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5. You know, there's probably not a single gamer or respectable gamer out there that doesn't or hasn't even heard of Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto in general. Yeah, Grand Theft Auto has made such a big name for itself over the generations of gaming that because of its edginess, because of its edginess, and because of its ability to go far out there in terms of storytelling, as well as give us this huge open sandbox world that otherwise distracts us from our main objective. So, what is it about Grand Theft Auto 5 that is so appealing to every gamer out there? I mean, we've kind of seen this sort of thing before. Is it the open sandbox world that we love going back to seeing? Is it the developed story that we constantly go for? Is it because we want to see just how far Rockstar can push the edginess and just see how dirty we can get with video games in general? It's sort of up in the air and different for everybody. Me personally, I like to see the open sandbox world just because I really like the attention to detail and how far these guys go to make something so outrageously beautiful to look at. I mean, Grand Theft Auto in itself, regardless of its edginess and its dark, crude humor that it does deliver on, is probably one of the greatest gaming franchises out there that I would highly recommend to an adult gamer, simply because its creativity, its tenacity, goes so far that you literally have to respect it for what it is. Now, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes of Grand Theft Auto that unfortunately doesn't really have such a bright side to it. Unfortunately, Grand Theft Auto is one of those name franchises that unfortunately catches a lot of flack. Some for good reason and some for not so good reason. Okay, now first off, going with the history of Grand Theft Auto, or at least going back to San Andreas, everybody remembers like the hot coffee incident, where apparently there was some sort of pornographic imagery going on within, I guess, the PC version of the game when it was released, and it actually made headline news in the newspapers, and it caused them to bring back retail discs, and I guess Rockstar kind of went a little too far with that. Now, of course, Grand Theft Auto is no secret when it comes to that sort of thing, when it comes to sleeping with prostitutes, open, wide-up murder, cursing, stereotypes, and all that stuff. It's basically like a very, very edgy, dark, or much darker version of Soul Plane, but or just with anything. But Grand Theft Auto 5 is the newest installment in the franchise, and one that everybody was eagerly awaiting for a very long time. And it takes the series into a new direction. Well, not so much of a new direction, but it does go to new places. It does do things differently. Now, it takes place within the fictional world of Los Santos, which I guess is their interpretation of Los Angeles. And I guess that's true because you can see a Hollywood banner of Vinewood instead of Hollywood. So yeah, it's it's their interpretation of Los Angeles. Now, I had a lot of fun in the open world with it, but at the same time, I was just wondering how far did they go, and I wanted to like stretch the boundaries just to see how far I could get. In fact, I was so looking forward to and seeing if by any means necessary or possible did they manage to put like a Universal Studios or a Disneyland sort of interpretation into this game, because I know it's horrible to say, but how awesome or funny would it have been to actually go into the Disneyland or the Universal Studios interpretation and just like go bloody murder on everything. I mean, it's dark, but it's hilarious, the idea of them actually having done something like that. Of course, they never would have gotten away with using the name Disneyland. They would have had to make up something else like they did for Vinewood and Los Santos. So yeah, that would have been something if they did. Unfortunately, I never found one. If there is, but the surprising thing is the game is so big. The open world sandbox for Grand Theft Auto 5 is so massively huge that exploring it all in like even within a few weeks is far too much to ask, because there's so much to do. There's so much to see. It is such an improvement over Grand Theft Auto 4. This is where some people kind of agree or disagree. Where Grand Theft Auto 4 did definitely do a lot of things, whereas it expanded across the universe, it did make everything look finer detailed and that sort of things. And, of course, GTA 5 did the same thing. But I think they took it a step further, because now you get to see the world through 3 different perspectives. and I guess these three different perspectives do make make it necessary that the world that you're in has to be a lot bigger in order to make this happen. So you're following three main protagonists this time around. You're following a black man, Frederick, who is, of course, he's kind of like the ghetto hoodlum that he's like, to me, he came off as kind of like the yes man, especially as the game went on and he met like the other people. Like, he's kind of the guy that is a newbie when it comes to heist jobs or any high-class criminal sort of things, and he's trying to kind of gain the knowledge and wisdom of higher ups, and he's just kind of like the yes man. Like, he'll do whatever it takes to get into these guys' shoes. So he's kind of like the apprentice in training. So I guess it's expected that he would be a yes man, but at the same time, he's kind of like I don't know. Of course, naturally, the characters in Grand Theft Auto aren't actually supposed to be to your liking. I mean, these aren't good people. These are relatively pretty bad people. So if you have any sort of relative to them, it's a little odd. Yeah, you know what I mean. Having any sort of relativeness or being relative to any of these characters probably isn't the best thing to put on your resume. But so yeah, like there is another character you follow is Michael, who is an expert heist planner and a doer. He has robbed so many high-class places. He's basically made a career off of it until recently, 10 years later, he decided to dumb it down and live his life normally. But unfortunately, he has a very, very crappy family who is... I don't want to get into spoilers too much. So yeah, bad family. Michael, even though he's got a bad past, he's probably my favorite character out of the bunch because he's the most redeemable. He actually tries to make a better life for himself, even though his decisions sometimes get him into the bad situation. However, near the end of it, or during the entire adventure, based on, I guess, multiple endings you may or may not be able to obtain, he actually is quite the redeemable one. The third character you get access to is a man named Trevor, and he is the redneck of all rednecks. Trevor is the character that you do not want to meet. He is the character you do not want to hang out with. He is the character you do not want for a friend. This is the kind of guy that will peer pressure you into something regardless of what it is, and will more than likely get you killed because of it, whether it's by somebody else or if he does it himself. Trevor is the go-to all-be-all when it comes to redneck badassery and just complete douchebag. Yeah, like, Trevor was by far the character I hated throughout this entire thing, but for some reason I found it hilarious to hang out with him. Like, I don't like this character, but seeing the stuff that he gets himself into is so hilarious, and then he just kind of shrugs it off and blames everybody else around him. And at any point in time during the game, you can swap between the characters by holding down on the D-pad, and you can just, almost during any times. Like, if you're getting caught by the police, of course you can't swap out because that'd be kind of cheap. But yeah, you can, during most of the time, you can swap out between characters, and you never know what situations you're going to find them in, because they're never in the same place where you left them off. So more often than not, when you try to switch to Trevor, he's going to be, he'll be off in a distant land, and you'll be wondering how the hell did he get here. He'll often be crashed in his underwear on some sort of urban territory where you're just like, how in the heck did this scenario even happen? One time I even found him knocked out with a bottle of booze in his hand, and he was wearing a woman's nightgown, which was hilarious, on the top of a mountain, no less, like miles and miles away from society. And I'm just like, how in the hell did he even... What? This demands explanation. So it's things like that. So Grand Theft Auto 5 now. Now let's talk about Rockstar for a minute. Rockstar, the developer, publisher, creator, makers of Grand Theft Auto series. Now, Rockstar unfortunately has a habit of really pushing the edginess sometimes way too far. Of course, edginess in video games and darkness isn't all that bad. Sure, you can make things go a little too far with your realism and things, but see, Rockstar does things that publishers and developers really shouldn't. They go outside of the game with their dark and crudeness and actually try to somewhat incorporate it into a real life, subtle but kind of over the top way, where it's rumored, apparently, I guess somewhere it was revealed to be true. Do not take my word for this. You could probably Google some information on it. But it was apparently worded that Rockstar has been paying for negative criticism and just like all sorts of negative sort of publicity about Grand Theft Auto 5, not necessarily about the game, but crimes that were probably being done because on behalf of the game. Now, unfortunately, I didn't want to believe this is true. I'm still not entirely sure. I'm holding judgment on it until I get facts, but it is worth pointing out. Now, the reason why I am full on against this, other than the obvious reasons, is because gaming, unfortunately, hasn't been very popular amongst the media. And of course, we all know that the media loves to thrive on negative criticism, whatever it is, and they try to make up these stories. You know how it is, like back in the day, comic books were the cause of crime, and how later on it became movies are the cause of crime. Then it was rap music or just bad music that was the cause of crime and people killings and school shootings. And then, of course, now the recent popular thing has become video games. Oh, video games are terrible. They're the devil. They cause these children and people to go into schools and commit murders and start shooting people. Ignorance beyond ignorance, with people just going out and thinking these really ludicrous things without any physical evidence, other than the fact that they just want to hate on something, just to blame something. Now, my problem is Rockstar is backing this up, sort of. Like, they may unintentionally be kind of supporting this by paying for this negative these public assets. Like, you're not helping the situation. You're kind of showing that you're not really for the gamer side if you're just selling them out for some publicity. Now, I'm all for getting of course, being how hard they worked on the game. Like, definitely, this is something that people want to see. Like, of course, when you work on a piece of artwork, you want to show it off. You want people to acknowledge your skill, or there's a lot of people that are like that. When you do great work, of course, you want to be acknowledged for it. So I can't blame them so much as to wanting to get notoriety for such a great creation. Like, we did this amazing thing with this huge open world, and we want everybody to see it because we worked so hard on it. So we have to do whatever it takes to make sure that everybody from around at least knows our name, Grand Theft Auto 5, and at least gets to see the open world and explore it and know about it. No matter what the cost, no matter who gets hurt, no matter what sort of genre of people get involved or shot down because of it. We need people to know that our creation has been such an influence on media and mankind. And unfortunately, they went about it the wrong way. Of course, negativity with media really does skyrocket, so it was destined to succeed when it got to the news. But this was not how you want to go about it. So yeah, definitely bad points on Rockstar's decisions for doing something like that. I mean, you guys gotta monitor your people in there. So yeah, I can't say whether or not all of this is true when it comes to Rockstar. So far from what I'm seeing and hearing, it's possible that it might be, and if it is true, it's terrible. If it's not true, then, well, you know, rumors and opinions are like assholes. Rumors come and go. You just gotta take it you gotta take it with a grain of salt. Now, Grand Theft Auto 5, I'll be the first to admit, and I'm probably not the first to admit, there is absolutely no rhyme or reason why adults should be buying Grand Theft Auto 5 for your kids. Grand Theft Auto 5 is not a video game for children by any means at all. And I will go out of my way to say that if you, a parent, are going out of your way to buy Grand Theft Auto 5 for your child, you are a bad parent. And you cannot blame the game, you cannot blame the media, you cannot blame the developers for creating something that might otherwise, like, psychologically harm your child. It was you who made the decision to buy this rated R game for your child, and it's not their fault, it's not the TV's fault, it's not their fault, anybody's fault except your own, for giving your child access to this sort of thing. It's their job to tell a story the way they see fit. You are the one in charge of whether or not you're going to buy it for your child or not. So you can't blame them. On the box, it clearly states in many forms that this is not a game for kids. So you have nobody else to blame for yourself. And if you're going to go out of your way to say that, well, I didn't know that they had ratings of that sort of thing. Well, that is your own ignorance. Illiteracy in that sort of way is not an excuse. You as a parent have a responsibility to be interested in your child's life and to also make sure that whatever it is that they are doing is safe and sound. So, not trying to hear that. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. And I hate hearing about how all of these parents, like even there's YouTube videos about it where parents are like buying their children like on camera, surprising them with copies of Grand Theft Auto 5. It's just the same kind of people that buy the kids Call of Duty. These are not games for your kids. Why do you... Come on, man. So, overall, Grand Theft Auto 5, it is an amazing game, but my God, it's an adult game. There are lap dances. There's torture scenes, and the difference between torture scenes in this particular video game, unlike movies and sort of things where you can watch torture scenes happening, actually being the one to commit the torturing and go ahead with it and being the one that makes the decisions and actually jerking out somebody's teeth from their mouth while also waterboarding them, it can be very uncomfortable to watch, let alone sit through. But being the one in control of it and making it happen, and also like watching full-on breasted women without their bras in front of the camera, guys, what are you doing? I mean, this is it's for adults. There's no rhyme or reason why children should be playing this. I know I sound like a very amateur therapist when I'm telling you guys this, but this is not something that that should be hard to think about or hard to even know. This is not by any means rocket science by any near means of the word. This is just common sense. So, all in all, Grand Theft Auto 5, it's an amazing game. It's a huge open sandbox world game with tons of stuff to do. You've got mini games. You've got you can play tennis with your with NPCs and kind of have fun with that. And in fact, it kind of becomes a different game in itself. There's a lot of optional side quests. You can go and buy clothes. You can get involved in so many things. In the online world, you have jobs to do with other characters or other people from around the world. You can actually go on heists together and make plans together. That is something that is really cool. And it takes online cooperative to a whole new level, in my opinion. And it's really great that they were allowed to do that. There are apps on your, unfortunately, as far as I know, Android tablets don't really support it yet. I don't know if Rockstar is going to make an app for it. But for the iOS or something, they have a GTA 5 app that allows you to get involved within the world of Grand Theft Auto 5 from be it your PlayStation Network account or your gamer tag, and you can interact within the world, be like your dog or anything of that nature from other things. And so yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5 has so much to offer, and I definitely highly recommend it, as long as it's not for your kids. So yeah, there's really not much I can say about Grand Theft Auto 5 or Grand Theft Auto in general that hasn't been spoken about or seen in general, because once you generally play one, you kind of almost have played them all, but the new ones, all they really do is expand upon the universe. They make the world more huge, more vibrant, more fun to explore. They give you more options, and I guess one of the biggest features about this one is how the main thing about it is you can commit heists. Heists being huge, big robbery jobs where you gotta plan out your heists, you gotta plan out the jobs you want to do. You can go about how you want to commit these jobs. You can go in loud and guns blazing, or you can be smart about it and go stealthy. Obviously, the stealthy one or the more subtle one takes more time to do, because you gotta go and set up for it. Literally, the great thing about it is that it takes it with such a realistic approach, where you have to set up everything. Nothing is going to be done for you. Nothing holds your hand in here. You got to go out and get the getaway cars. You got to go and get all the gear that you need to set up. You got to go and buy the guns, the right equipment. You've got to do all of this on your own time. However, one of the greatest features of Grand Theft Auto 5, I don't know for sure if Grand Theft Auto 4 had this feature. If it did, I sure as heck didn't know about it, and I didn't use it. But the greatest feature Grand Theft Auto 5 to me has is the ability to use your cell phone to call a taxi cab. Now, one of the biggest, one of the things that works both ways about Grand Theft Auto 5 was the open sandbox world kind of also worked against you, even though it was basically a world that you could do anything you want in. Unfortunately, it was one of the most distracting things ever. It kind of deterred you away from the main objective of the game, and you always were heading, like you're trying to go to where your objective is, but you get too easily distracted by the fact that you can do absolutely anything you want in this world. And having the ability to call a taxi cab driver, which will come straight to, that will come straight to you from anywhere, and you can pinpoint the taxi cab to take you where you want to go, and you can have the ability to skip directly there. Like the taxi cab like works as an instant teleportation, where okay, I need to go halfway across the state for my next objective. Call a taxi cab, the taxi cab shows up, you select the destination, and then you press your action button, and the screen goes black, and then you wait a loading screen, and then it fades into the exact destination you need to be at. I love that feature because that is probably going to be a speedrunner's best feature, being able to call a taxi cab or finding one nearby. So yeah, it definitely helps complete the game quicker. It helps you stay focused on your main objective, and by God, I love the taxi cab. I called that thing so many times just to get to, and it doesn't just help you get to your objectives. The taxi cab will take you anywhere along the map where it has anywhere. So if you need to go buy guns, it'll take you to a gun store. If you need to go to a liquor store, it'll take you to a liquor store. If you need to go shopping for some clothes, which you will need to do, it'll take you to the nearest or wherever you want to go to buy some good clothing. There is a lot of story elements in Grand Theft Auto 5 that are amazing. Since you're following 3 different characters, you've got 3 different story scenarios that you're following. Each of them get into their own situations. Each of them have their own problems. Sometimes they have to intertwine to get their problem solved. Sometimes their problems are separate, and you got to handle things differently with each character. And it's so much fun to see how these characters are going to work together, or maybe they'll separate depending on your choices. And just the freedom to do anything about it is such an experience. Like I give Grand Theft Auto 5 my highest recommendation, because you're definitely, with Grand Theft Auto 5, you're definitely getting your dollar's worth. Even though Grand Theft Auto has a history of being super dark, super edgy, by having all of these major curse words, by capturing the realistic world of our ghettos and all of everything wrong with our society, it's still got to earn some sort of respect by having like just this tenacity to be so big. Like that's all I can really say when it comes to Grand Theft Auto, is that it's big. I know this review has gone on for quite a while, but yeah, it's just Grand Theft Auto 5 is really something to behold, and for $60 or for the price, you're definitely getting your money's worth, because not only do you have objectives to follow. By the way, the objectives are really long. Like, even if you were to take the taxi cab and go straight to your objectives, this is still a really long game. I mean, whereas today's games, like say DMC from Capcom, was relatively 6 hours depending on how fast you played it, Grand Theft Auto, even if you go straight to your objectives, is still immensely long. And being that you have 3 different characters with 3 different scenarios to go through only increases that. Plus, there are tons of side quests. Even after you beat the game, there's still tons of things to do. Like, I'm pretty sure that when I completed the game, my status said I was only about 45% done, because there was so much more to do outside of the main objectives, whether it be just exploring the sandbox world. You never know what you'll run into. You might run into a story element, you might run into some rampage scenarios where you're just prompted to openly kill just about anybody. There's so much going on in Grand Theft Auto 5 that it's just way too much to talk about, way too much to go on about. And again, there's nothing I can tell you about Grand Theft Auto that hasn't been spoken about, or it's not like this is new. Everybody knows what Grand Theft Auto is. Everybody knows how big it is. So what you're expecting is probably right. So if you didn't like Grand Theft Auto before, odds are you're probably not going to like it now. If you loved Grand Theft Auto back then, and you loved how big it was, and you loved what it did, I can't deny or even tell you otherwise. Of course you're going to be interested. Of course you're going to be hyped for it. Does it have its flaws? Of course it does. No game is without that. Does it have poor business decisions based on the companies? Of course it does. Unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. However, Grand Theft Auto does deserve a lot of respect, because the company itself, even though they have made some very questionable and downright stupid business decisions, you got to admire the work that they did put into this game, and it really shows. The effort has definitely not gone without notice. So yeah, Grand Theft Auto, my highest recommendation. I definitely say check it out. It's obnoxious, it's rude, it's everything, and I'd have to say you're missing out if you don't pick it up. Of course, there's a lot of uncomfortableness when it comes to this sort of thing. Grand Theft Auto is not for everybody. I'm sorry to say that it really is not. Of course, it's not for kids. You shouldn't be buying this for your kids. There are going to be even some adults that may be very uncomfortable with playing games like this that just create the utter realism of our society. I mean, this is not Tales of Xillia. This is not Sonic the Hedgehog, where you're in a fantasy land, where you're a superhero that has the power to do anything you want in sort of a fantasy land. I mean, sure, this is a fantasy land to some extent. However, it's based on reality. And it's based on reality in such a magnificent way that if you really did wanted to kill somebody but you couldn't do it in real life, well, I guess here's your answer. Just cut loose. So, yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5. It's an amazing game, but oh boy, it's crazy. I guess that's really the best way to explain it, is that Grand Theft Auto 5, it's crazy. Yeah, that should be the tagline. So, I probably would have showed you some footage to go along with this. If you disagree or agree, you can rate, comment, subscribe, you can conversate about it. I don't mean to be stepping on anybody's toes if you dislike my attitude towards parents buying children these things, but you got to admit that it's like, even if I was a little strongly about it, oh well. So, thank you for watching. This is William Morris from the Brotherhoodofgaming.com. You can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, and all of that stuff, and we will see you in the next game review. So until next time, keep on gaming, viewers.